Hello guys, welcome back to another video. So today we're actually going to be talking about Dynex coin. So there's some news around Dynex coin, and I know I'm a bit late to the news, but we're going to look at slightly the aftermath of what happened with Dynex coin in terms of SRBMiner. So a quick overview of what happened. SRBMiner actually exploited the proof of work side of the Dynex network. So they slowly implemented into the miner with each release a way that AMD cards could basically circumvent the useful work, so they didn't have to do any useful work and they just focused on the hashing algorithm. This would reward them basically with more hash rate and in turn more coins, and in turn more Dynex for mining. And this has subsequently had a big effect on the Dynex network. So today we're going to be looking at the aftermath, giving my opinions and other things like that. So firstly, when we're looking at Dynex, I think we should first look at the hash rate on Dynex. So what happened here was that SRBMiner had basically the only AMD. So as soon as those AMD miners moved off of SRBMiner, the hash rate dropped substantially from around 2 gigahash down to 1 gigahash, and it's coming slowly back up from here. But in turn, what that means for miners of Dynex right now is actually you would get more rewards per mega hash. As we can see here, it used to be 4.5 or 4.8, and then as the AMD cards came off the network, we actually came to 9.2. So basically a double in rewards just because the hash rate has been halved. So you can see the earnings as well is the same thing. However, the price has dropped slightly since the start of the week, so some of these numbers are averaged out on the price of Dynex, for example. And as you can see right here, you have a chart for the price of Dynex and then the earnings per mega hash. And you can see right around here when the news kind of broke is where the earnings per mega hash like basically eclipses the price, and it goes all the way up to here. And then subsequently the price is going down. So for the most part, it's had a substantial effect on the network. As I said, hash rate has dropped by around half. But in turn, people that are using the Nvidia miners, so any Nvidia GPUs, you basically get an increase on earnings per your mega hash, which is around double the earnings, just because difficulty would drop and there'd be less miners on the network because the AMD rigs have come off. So therefore, we're seeing more rewards for Nvidia miners on Dynex. Now, what does this mean for SRBMiner? Well, when we're looking on HIVEOS, I know this is only for HIVEOS, not for Windows, because we don't have those figures. But you can still see that Dynex is still the top coin, and Dynex Solve is still the top algorithm, so at 16% and 15% respectively. I believe Dynex was way higher at around 30 or 25% around 2 weeks ago. I think I have a screenshot on my live stream somewhere from that. And then obviously the miners, so for GPU miners, at the top it used to be SRBMiner, and now it's dropped down to, if we look here, there's still 7% hash rate on it overall. So people are still using SRBMiner, mainly I'd say probably for the Nvidia side of mining, because SRBMiner will still work for Nvidia mining. It just depends on if you want to use it or not, based off the fact that they did try to circumvent the proof of useful work. And as we can see there, OneZeroMiner has actually climbed up to second place. So OneZeroMiner, people are putting more faith in it, I suppose, and they're basically moving over to that to mine Dynex instead of using SRBMiner, which is understandable in this case. So this is probably going to move to the top spot in a couple of days, depending on what happens with the SRBMiner. If somebody else comes out with a miner, that could potentially be a new miner for AMD cards. So right now, AMD cards can't mine on Dynex, I believe. So here we have the latest release of SRBMiner. It just talked about fixing the Dynex shares and the performance improvement. And if we actually scroll down, you can see that they basically only do things for Dynex, as in they're only updating the miner for Dynex right now. All supported algorithms, performance improvements. They're always saying minor performance improvements, major performance improvements for Dynex. And this is when they were slowly implementing their proof of useful work circumventing, and that's with every release. They slightly upped it so that you would get more hash rate every release, so people would want to mine on SRBMiner instead of other miners for Dynex. Now, as I said, OneZeroMiner did come out with a release 16 hours ago, so they're obviously working overtime because they've received probably a lot of hash rate onto the miner, so they want to make sure everything's fixed and there's probably a lot of people run into bugs on there. Remember, this is the beta version, but I'll leave it linked in the description if you want to use it. This is only for Nvidia GPUs. This is not for AMD GPUs. So if we go on benchmarks on hash rate NO, they only are displaying right now Nvidia GPUs and no AMD GPUs. I believe that the 6900 XT was at the top of here, or was it the 6800 XT? One of them was at the top of the efficiency for AMD. That subsequently come off. I know the Radeon VIIs, those ones came pretty close to the top efficiency as well. So obviously these have all been taken off now. And the actual only AMD we see here is actually the RX 7900 XTX. So I don't know where they got those figures from, but clearly somebody just input those figures for the hashes and the efficiency there. So a lot of people have been talking about this. I do want to mention WolfZero did point this out quite a while ago in April of 2023. Someone I know got duped by Dynex coin, so I'm posting this. The devs didn't even consider that someone might do the proof of work without doing the proof of useful work at first. They did fix this, however, see this thread for the bad dumpster fire it is. The exploit of being able to do the proof of work without doing proof of useful work was fixed, in quotation marks, using a centralized server called a malloc server. It gets which feeds all the miners' useful work. So that's when you're talking about the malloc endpoint, that is the server to actually feed the useful work to miners, regardless of what proof of work pool they're mining on. That's not all. The miner is very well obfuscated, meaning the internals are trashed, so it's extremely hard for a human to read, while still running correctly. This suggests that they know it's centralized and they are lying to people. So this is one of the main problems with decentralized proof of useful work, is that you kind of need to collate it from each different mining pool, because then you can actually assign jobs outwards. So this is the problem with proof of useful work that they're trying to solve now, the decentralization of it, because they are basically pointing it towards a server that is then centralized into all one network. So all the mining pools, they do write in the batch file that you're pointing to the malloc endpoint where all the mining or all the machines are basically connected to. The actual work files do not seem to come from their malloc server, which appears to be running some crappy CMS called CPPCMS embedded from the response it gives to the miner, but from an SSL connection to jobs.dynex.org. So this is one of the main problems that we are talking about in terms of Flux proof of useful work, is can they actually decentralize it? How are they going to achieve that? Because Dynex said that they had decentralized it, but we still don't know necessarily. And this kind of exploit that we've been seeing from SRBMiner kind of proves the fact that there are some exploits that can happen on the network. It's not necessarily on Dynex team. I think the main blame falls on SRBMiner just because they chose to exploit it. So we can't really put the blame on the Dynex team necessarily. However, the Dynex team haven't figured out the fully decentralization of this proof of useful work yet. There is a question to be had of whether Dynex should have basically had a testnet up until now, and they fixed out all those issues before somebody started exploiting the mainnet network. So those of you who were mining on AMD cards, you're not going to be able to mine anymore. I believe probably OneZeroMiner will come out with some AMD support. Dynex will probably have to rewrite some of the code for mining just to basically stop the AMD cards from overriding this proof of useful work to proof of work algorithm. But then you also have to look at if OneZeroMiner was looking at SRBMiner's code, they could basically reverse engineer the same thing. So to conclude, basically, Dynex needs to solve some of these issues within that. Also, the miner programmers, they need to be a bit more open and less exploitive with these codes. Just because there is an exploit doesn't mean that you should abuse it. It should be, at least relayed over to the Dynex coin team. And if you relay it over to them and they don't solve it, you should put it out there and say that there is an exploit so they get to fix it quicker. But mainly, Dynex should probably be on a testnet and not on a mainnet right now, just because they haven't fully fleshed out everything. And it kind of looks bad on both sides, both the coin side and the miner programmer's side. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I just wanted to show you the aftermath of the Dynex and SRBMiner debacle, I guess. And if you did enjoy, please like the video and subscribe for more content, and let me know in the comments what you think about this whole situation with Dynex and SRBMiner.